Hi, it's Naturally Glow here and welcome back to my channel. This is the second part to my 1 month update video. The first video already covered what I do on a daily basis to maintain my hair, how I wash my hair, and how I retightened it this first time around with my handy dandy husband, as I call him. This being a new journey for me, despite the fact that I've been natural for almost 6 years, I definitely had a lot of lessons learned this first month. And so in this video, I'm planning on sharing with you my top 3 most important lessons learned. Some of these you might have heard in other videos, but I'm really planning on putting an emphasis on why these things are important, because once you know why, then you can decide whether it makes sense for you to go about it or not, and you'll know some of the risks that you're taking if you do not end up going with these suggestions. So I'm sharing from my experience why I think these are important, because a lot of times online I find it hard to sometimes find the why, even though I see that people are doing some of these things. So hopefully you can learn from my experience, but as you know, and I say in all my videos, I'm not a loctician, I'm not a beautician, I'm not a professional hairstylist. I am just sharing my journey with you, and I'm just a lover and very passionate about natural hair. Now, that being said, you want to hear about my top lessons learned? Just stay tuned. So my first most important lesson that even then encompasses the other 2 I'm going to mention is to not to just blindly follow the retighten your hair every 4 to 6 weeks, and then because of that you don't check your hair, you're not keeping tabs on what's going on down there and everything. Basically, my first tip is to check your hair often, keep on top of what it's doing, be aware of what's going on. This is especially important if you've done your own microlocks, but it's also important even if you've gone to a loctician or if you have sister locks, because every advice and tips and suggestions that are out there are general, apply generally to people, but each of us have different hair. So what your specific journey, what you're experiencing specifically might differ. I would have saved myself quite a couple of challenges if every week I had just been taking the time to go in the mirror, see how much growth I have, see how the roots of my hair look, and things like that. But I didn't do that. I just had in mind, oh, okay, I am free for the next 4 to 6 weeks. I'll decide, at 4 weeks I'm going to decide exactly whether I'm going to retighten my hair at 4, 5, or 6 weeks specifically. But I should have checked it more often for sure. So now, the second lesson that I learned is that while I am very happy with the method that I chose for installing my locks, that being having braided the bottom, then done 2-strand twists through the end of my hair. While I'm happy with having gone about that, and it worked for me, it worked for my timeline that I was working with for putting in these locks, I learned that the braid that I did at the bottom, where the purpose of doing that braid was to have a tighter base to my hair to help prevent slippage. That's why I did the braid at the bottom, because if I felt that if I just did twists, I might have had them unravel a lot, I would have had a lot of slippage, and then I would have had a lot of work to redo. I would have had to rework a lot of it, and I didn't want to do that. So that's why I put the braid at the bottom. I learned that that braid was not sufficient for my hair. Compared to the braid that I had, interlocks are substantially tighter. So if I think about like a lock of hair, and I've done twisting and if this is a twist, then I think of it as being pretty loose. If it's a braid, I think about it being a little bit tighter. If it's an interlock, it's like super tight. Like, so if I had interlocked the base of my hair, if I'd maybe done an interlock, then twist, or an interlock, then braid, then twist, I think I would have had substantially less slippage than what I actually ended up having. There was another contributing factor to the slippage that I experienced. So I can't isolate the situation to say that it was purely because I braided the base, but having now, at the time that I put in my Microlocs, I had never actually performed the process of interlocking. So I didn't know that interlocking was tighter than a braid pattern, at least substantially tighter than a braid pattern. Now I know that. So if I could have gone back and redone my process, I would have interlocked the base. That's hopefully an important lesson, and that's hopefully an important lesson for me that might also benefit you. Related to that, I would say that if you are able, and you're doing your own Microlocs, to still try to do some test locks. Because again, if I had done those test locks and then gone through a wash period with those test locks in, I would have been able to see how they held up. Did it unravel? To what extent? And in that case, I would have been able to isolate whether the amount of slippage I experienced was due to the pattern in which I chose to install the locks. So if you have the time, if you have the flexibility, if you have the ability to do test locks in advance of doing your whole head in the particular pattern, again, sisterlocks, Microlocs, whatever it is, I highly recommend it, and I recommend going through a wash period to see how they hold up afterwards. Now, in my previous point, I referred to the fact that there were other contributing factors to the slippage that I had. This other contributing factor was the fact that I had not actually separated out each individual lock of hair after washing. So my third point is that after washing your hair, you should take the time to hold up a part of your hair and literally separate each strand. Separate each individual strand. That way you minimize matting. Any growth that you have, you're separating it out from the neighboring locks. You're just separating them so that you reduce the matting. I never would have guessed that the matting would be so much. I think it's because in addition to my growth, I had slippage, and then that matted. And then throw in the fact that I had washed my hair twice without performing this separation that I'm talking about. So long story short, I experienced a ton of matting in a substantial portion of my hair. And that could have been avoided if, after washing my hair, when my hair was maybe 70-75% dry, I just took the time while doing anything, watching a show, reading a book, whatever, just hold up some hair and then just pull out each individual lock. Make sure that it's not stuck to the neighboring ones, and that would have saved me a ton of stress. So those are my 3 top lessons that I learned this month. Hopefully you find them helpful. If there are any other ones that you can think of that you think I would benefit from, or that others watching this video would benefit from, please just comment below. And if you like the video, please subscribe to get more videos from me. But otherwise, I will just leave you with this: to love yourself and remember you naturally glow.